My name is David. I'm the director of the Sternberg Museum Science Camps out of Fort Hays State University in Kansas. The Sternberg Museum of Natural History is part of that university. Um, my academic background, I have an undergraduate and a bachelor's of science from University of Oregon in geosciences. My undergrad research was on locomotor biomechanics of terrestrial mammals, so basically looking at like the mechanical physics of running and how that changed over time. Um, yeah, I can get into that if people are interested, but like basically different length of limb bones make you better at walking or running or other things. Um,
And this is
and then
mostly
my
in mammals, right?
master's all terrestrial mammals. Yeah. I mean like
Nice. Yeah.
I know enough to be dangerous with other things,
Uh-huh.
but I couldn't talk about it at length. Like if you asked me about
Sure.
whale spines, I would have like I could create an opinion, but I don't know the literature.
They don't do a lot of
Um,
running anyway, so yeah.
no, they don't. Not
Yeah.
anymore. Um, So, and then my master's work was on the ecology of the end Cretaceous extinction. So, kind of like evolution ecology, selectivity. Why did things die? Why
Hmm.
did some things survive? Particularly looking at multituberculates, but like the big picture is
Yeah.
all the food went away, and the things that were most susceptible to getting wiped out were probably they need a lot of resources. So yeah, everything starved to death.
Yeah.
And it was very bad. It's one of my soapboxes in paleo of the many I have is that as much as we look to these mass extinctions, it's like that must have been bad.
Uh-huh.
We've never really seen anything. Like no human has ever seen anything that I think comes anywhere close
Right.
to how bad they would have been. Like
Uh-huh.
one of my dreams is to make an animated film kind of like Watership Down,
Uh-huh.
only it's the end Cretaceous extinction, and it's just
Oh
like a
man.
bunch of little mammals who are like
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I love that idea. Shoot. That sounds gut wrenching
basically an
though. Yeah.
animated horror movie. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Well, that's really cool and great way to introduce you as well. I often try to we work really hard to humanize researchers, scientists on here, and I'm
Yeah.
not going to have to work too hard at that with you because you're very personable and I don't know. You're starting off with fun stuff like this, so I appreciate that. You're making
Yeah.
my job easy,
So
David.
fun.
Yeah. um yeah, well, we should maybe go into a little bit more in your background. Where are you from
Sure.
originally and how did you get into paleo in the first place? What's your origin story within
Sure. So
paleontology?
like I'm from the West Coast. So I was born in the Bay Area.
I didn't know that. Oh, where at?
That centuries ago.
Yeah.
Um, East Bay.
Okay. That's where I live.
Um,
Yeah, Oakland.
yeah. So like
Yeah.
Palo Alto, not Palo Alto, San Jose, kind of in
Okay, yeah.
that
South
sense.
Bay then. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Fremont. That's where we lived.
There
The
we go.
hospital
Okay,
was
yeah.
more. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
nice.
was like,
Nice.
what's the actual city? Yeah. So Fremont. My family. We moved. My dad was a programmer. He was like Silicon Valley
Uh-huh.
stuff. At the advent of that, moved to Oregon because he was going to be a teacher. Um, but my parents sold their house like the morning of the day of the Lomieta earthquake in '89.
Oh, October 15th, 1989, I think it was.
Yeah,
We have talked about this
yeah,
before. Now I remember. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I was in kindergarten during that,
Uh-huh.
and have very
Yeah,
still like
yeah.
very clear memories of like light
Uh-huh.
poles doing that
Yeah,
little
yeah.
dances.
Shoot. Uh-huh.
Just being like, they're not that doesn't normally happen.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
That's weird.
Do
Why
you
is the
feel like
ground
that maybe
moving?
had an effect on you in going into the earth sciences like paleo?
Um, I got like a dinosaur pop-up book. And this is
Mm.
what my parents have told me. I got a dinosaur pop-up book when I was quite young, like three,
Uh-huh.
5, something like that. And it was, like this is a paleontologist. And it was a person with a pick, like digging up a
Uh-huh.
T-Rex. And that was like definitely where the entry to the dinosaur phase came in of like, oh,
Okay.
I'm going to like hyper focus on this thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it stuck
Uh-huh.
forever. ever.
I can relate. Yeah.
So I think that having access to museums, having a family that's very supportive of like education and
Hmm.
science and stuff like that. My grandparents on both sides of the family were in their ways really supportive, and that definitely helped a lot. My
Nice.
one of my grandfathers used to send me like VHS tapes because I'm a
Uh-huh.
million years old. VHS
I
tapes
remember
of
VHS tapes,
like
yeah.
nature documentaries that he would record
Uh-huh.
on like PBS, and he would just put the VHS tape and record the whole thing. And like a few times a year, I would get like a VHS tape of some nature documentary. And by the time I was in high school, I had like a library of these things. Like it was a
Nice.
whole
Yeah, yeah.
shelf of just all these recorded programs. Um, and then on the other side of the family, like those were the grandparents that lived in the Bay Area still, and so I would go and
Hmm.
visit them, and they would take me to museums, and it was just a lot of encouragement in different ways, which I think played a really big part.
Nice, nice. And I'm sure we'll be getting into that today about how do we retain people in the sciences? How do we make it so that people can stay in paleontology and all of this? But
Yes,
before we
you
get
know I
into
have
that,
opinions on that.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. Just for some context, everybody, at SVP in 2024 in Minneapolis, David and I, we must have talked for like 2 hours, maybe even close to 3 hours, something like that.
Yeah, I think I like caught you in a hallway and then just monopolized half of your evening or something.
It was excellent though. Like, yeah, I'm like, this is a guy I need to bring on an interview, and I've been waiting to do this for years. So now it's wonderful to finally have you here, and I really appreciate you taking the
Yeah,
time.
absolutely.
Um, since we're gonna have viewers trickling in and out during this, I want to make sure that we bring up the Sternberg camps multiple times. So maybe we'll start with that, and we'll
Sure.
return to it again after we get to
Sure.
some other topics. But what are the Sternberg camps, and what do you want people to know about them who are watching right now?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll give a little bit of backstory on them, not the whole thing. If people
Hmm.
ask in the chat, let me know. I can happily go longer. Excuse me. So I attended various like summer science camps and fossil digs and stuff like that when I was growing up, all the way through,
Hmm.
and then I worked at them through college.
Nice.
And there's I went to the OMSI camps in Oregon and
Hmm.
then worked for them along with some other folks who were like now a bunch of paleontologists and outdoor educators and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and then I worked for Johns Hopkins CTY, which is a residential summer camp program that bases itself out of universities all over the country. I think they're international, or at least they
Okay.
were. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if they still are. Um, and one of the things that I noticed is that like the outdoor school stuff is amazing and really engaging learning. And the college campus stuff had its benefits as well. It was arguably a bit more accessible
Hmm.
because you weren't asking kids to like go on hikes all the time, and it was a bit more like we're going to do this really high level academic stuff for 2 to 3 weeks.
Uh-huh.
And so I started the Sternberg camps in 2013 with a series of crowd funds over like did three over the course of 3 years to buy a first set of gear.
So this
And
is
the
your
purpose
brainchild.
of them,
You
yeah,
started these in
yeah.
the first
So
place. Very cool.
yeah, right out of grad school. So I started at the
Uh-huh.
Sternberg in 2013. Um, and the purpose behind them is, and again, things that I can soapbox on for a long time, as you're personally aware.
Uh-huh.
Um, there's a level of like professional seriousness that while I love dig programs, and I've been to plenty of them,
Hmm.
it just felt like there wasn't the same level of let's get you let's take this seriously and give you some hands-on experience with the job
Right.
because like field work at best is like a month and a half of the year and you're kind of an exceptional situation to this.
Yeah. Yeah. 11 weeks in the field last year, but that's not
Okay,
typical.
so yeah,
Most of the people that I know are, they might be out there for 2 or 3 weeks over the course of a year.
right.
Yeah. It's often a
And
funding
so
limiting factor, but yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and so providing some opportunities for younger people who are interested in doing this stuff as a career and introducing them not only to how to do field work properly at an intro level,
Hmm.
intro intermediate level, but also being able to talk to them about kind of how this stuff works and some of the realities of it that they're not going to, at least at the time. There's a lot more um, social media personalities like yourself and others who share this information that what wasn't around 12 years ago,
Of
frankly,
course, yeah.
um, about how the profession works. And like the skeleton crew in that group, they have a lot of really frank conversations about how the profession works as well from kind of a different
Hmm.
angle. And so that's great, but we have the kids come and do field work and then we answer like career questions and all this other kind of stuff. There's a lot
Right.
of hidden curriculum in sciences, in
Oh yeah.
paleo especially,
Yep.
being like they're not going to tell you this in like a dinosaur dig program you do or a TV show because it's kind of not very sexy, but it's
Yeah.
also really necessary.
Uh-huh.
Like trying to think of a good pointed example of this. Like you need to know how to write.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You just have to. It's not negotiable. You need to know your writing skills need to be at least good. They
Hmm.
don't have to be like top 1% of the planet, but they need to be
Pulitzer worthy
good.
or anything, but yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that's like not exciting, but it's also super necessary.
Right.
Um and being able to like the students when they apply have to write a cover letter. They have to get a rec letter from somebody that has like 20 plus hours of supervisory experience working with
Hmm.
them. All this stuff that they're gonna have to start doing eventually anyway if they stick with this, and we use as a part of the application process. So yeah, the camps are basically pre-college professional development disguised as summer camp.
Right. Yeah. That's really cool. I mean, we've talked a lot about soft skills, and
Right. Yeah.
yeah, before we get to that, we did have a couple of questions in the chat. Mayor of Space
Sure.
wants to know: are the Sternberg camps named after the same Sternberg who is the namesake for Pteranodon sternbergi? And
Um, so there's
one of them at
George and
least.
Charles.
Yeah.
And I think Charles, I'm pretty sure that it's alphabetical. So Charles
Yeah.
is the older one.
That's I
Who's
think this
early.
guy here,
Yeah.
Charles Hazelius Sternberg. So I've got
Yeah.
his
And
picture on the wall for today's stream. Yeah.
I think that technically like he might be the namesake for the museum.
Uh-huh.
We have another guy on staff, Ian Trevethan, who knows this much better than I do. But
Okay.
yes, it's the same family of
Yeah.
Sternbergs, George
Kind
and
of a
Charles
very
and his other sons.
kind of a dynasty of famous fossil collectors in the
Yep,
U.S. and in Canada. Um,
yep.
Canadians especially speak about the Sternbergs in hushed tones, like it's yeah, revered might be a good word. But
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah,
So
it's the same that you folks have I'm sure heard of.
yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, and Petrodactylus says in the chat, I might have been one of those folks who wanted to go into paleontology for years before pivoting to a different career path. Still love paleontology, and it still inspires my career in its own way. And that's true
Yeah.
for so many people. I mean, we really do have a retention problem in paleontology. I think, well, we could talk about why, but so much of it is just lack of jobs. There's not very many paid jobs within paleo, and
There's not sustainably paid jobs.
there you go. That's a good way to put it.
Technically, they're
Yeah,
paid.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Lots of
A lot of ephemeral
internships.
stuff, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Um, why do you think that is? I mean, that is true
I
for a lot
mean,
of the sciences, but I feel like paleo in particular, there's that funnel narrows so severely when it gets from
sure.
people who are interested in the field down to people who can actually make their living, working within paleontology.
So the outlook I've taken on this more recently
Hmm.
is that paleo has a oddly a visibility problem.
Huh.
And the problem is like most folks, let's say you want to know like who's the most prestigious position, like at a hospital or at NASA or something like that. Like you have surgeons and you have
Mm.
astronauts, and these are the
Hmm.
ones that like are the charismatic, big name jobs.
They're the
But
face
they
of the
also don't.
organization. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
like, no pun intended in the astronauts case, but like they don't exist in a vacuum.
Right.
Obviously the astronauts don't. Um,
They need spacesuits for that.
but yeah, yeah, yeah. But there's a whole set of people that support
Oh yeah.
those roles and
Yeah.
their ability to do their jobs. And I think we don't do a very good job of talking about all the ways that you can be in paleontology, contribute to it.
Right.
Like if you're if you're doing bio, let's say you're doing ecology
Mm-hmm.
of some kinds, landscape ecology, academics, whatever,
Sure.
land management, anything that we know, anything new we learn about modern ecosystems and how they function informs how we are able to conduct paleontological research. Like paleo is this confluence point between so many different sciences that while there are not as many people who are specifically have a job title of like professional paleontologist, I think that we could do really well to make sure people understand that like if you go into some other field and you are contributing to the natural sciences in general, there's a
Uh-huh.
very good chance that in some way you're going to end up contributing to paleo because we
Right.
need all of it. We even need like natural sciences, physical sciences, whatever, anything in physics, chemistry, like all these other sciences.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if we're going to understand these long lost ecosystems and organisms and how they worked, especially ones
Mm-hmm.
that don't have any modern relatives, or modern, close modern representatives, like birds or dinosaurs, yeah, yeah, yeah. But like studying a seagull doesn't tell you how on Earth sauropods
Right.
functioned, you know?
I know what you mean.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So we don't we don't publicize, we don't talk about that part, I think, in sincere tones
Huh.
nearly enough. And I think that part of that is like people want to know about the dinosaurs.
Right.
100% get that. Dinosaurs are great. Love them. I've got paleo art that you can't see because it's blurry of dinosaurs all over this office that I have.
Uh-huh.
Um, but like when I was doing my end Cretaceous extinction research,
Mm-hmm.
I I didn't need more information about like this, I don't know, Triceratops. What I
Sure.
needed was insect sites. I
Mm.
really, really needed high quality
Right.
insect sites, particularly from North America.
Uh-huh.
And we don't have them. And so and we need more information about like the ecology of insects today and like being able to compare that to past data sets and all this other stuff. So as far as the jobs thing, yes, there are not a lot of jobs where you're specifically doing paleontology.
Mm-hmm.
And if
Right.
people want to contribute to paleo without being their full-time job, and they're not going to have like the charismatic title that they really looked up to when they were growing up,
Mm.
that will be a problem because there's just
Interesting.
not many that have like full-time pay and benefits and all the stuff
Right.
that you need to kind of like live at least securely.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, but like this is kind of the tack that I've taken, where like I don't do research. I've found that it just doesn't get me out of bed the same way that the rest of my job does. And so
Sure.
I've just kind of decided not to care about it as something
Mm-hmm.
that I do. I support the heck out of it however I can, but
Right.
I don't need to do it myself. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not really the best way for me to contribute to the field. It doesn't excite me. It's not where my skills are. And I think if folks were to kind of shift this whole thing around and
Mm-hmm.
instead of saying, I have to publish, I have to publish, I have to publish, I think if we can funnel resources and support into the folks that have demonstrated that they're really good
Mm-hmm.
at getting research done, and it's very motivating for them,
Uh-huh.
and they've got a good track record of it, the field will benefit from a kind of a rising tide
Okay.
situation.
I think I see what you mean. Well, to clarify, let me ask some clarifying
Sure.
questions. So you're saying this is in part kind of a communication problem, and that we're not really communicating this idea that like paleontology takes a lot of different people, a lot of support in order to have the few paid paleontologists who are like museum collections managers or
Sure.
museum scientists or professors, but there's also so many other people supporting them who are also doing paleontology, and we're not doing a good enough job
Contributing
of.
to rather
Right,
than
yeah.
doing. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Doing per se. I mean, I think there's also a reality that, like, if you're talking about why there aren't more full-time with benefits paid jobs doing paleontology, there's
Uh-huh.
an economics part of this too.
Yeah.
And that's not something that's going to get solved on its own. That's something that has to be kind of, I think, a wider cultural change in the
It's a
field as
big
far as how we
systemic
talk
thing.
about ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not going to get better anytime soon. That's for sure and for certain.
Mm.
Um, but the positions where there's a lot of jobs that, like full-time positions and all that, tend to be things where there is a larger kind of financial ecosystem
Mm-hmm.
around it because it's high demand. It reaches beyond things that we just like and reaches more into like things that we really need. Like being able to not freeze to death in the winter, being able to seek medical care, like
Sure.
energy, healthcare. Like if you're going to get into it, these are things that have a lot of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Like computers are everywhere, and so there's computer sciences and all this other stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I would argue, though, that the solution is not us justifying our existence better, because the existence
Hmm.
of paleontology, the
Uh-huh.
study of the planet we live on and how its life and ecosystems and everything have changed, that is very aspirational, and it is something that I think if we are not valuing, I think that that speaks to a certain level of cultural bankruptcy on our part.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
that's a different and larger problem. And we
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
solve that by just being upset that there's not enough jobs in paleo.
Right.
We can solve it by being smarter about how we organize the way we support paleontology.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I like that you mentioned, the medical field. There's obviously a lot of money in the medical field, especially in the United States. And there are a good number of paleontological
Yep.
researchers who make their living teaching at a veterinary college or a medical school, or
Yep.
people like Matt Wadle or Karen Poole, who we've had on the channel
Yeah.
multiple times. Um,
We know that anatomy.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. In a way that like a lot of other people don't necessarily focus on as much.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know. I was talking with Andy Farkey about this. We managed to catch him when I did like a little guerrilla stream from his museum a couple Septembers ago.
Hmm.
But he gave us a little spiel about people getting involved in paleontology, and he made the point that a lot of people want to become paleontologists, especially when they're kids, but the odds are kind of stacked against you. He says there are just by the numbers, you might have a better chance of becoming an NFL quarterback than becoming like
Sure.
a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
professional dinosaur paleontologist.
Yes. Yep.
Um, there's just
Statistically speaking, yes.
yeah, like there's maybe a few jobs that pop up every year that have that as the title, or you know, and it's tough. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, how do you think about that when you're running the Sternberg camps? I mean, here you're trying to get students who are maybe interested in paleontology and give them a real experience and kind of you know throw them into this milieu, and for some of them it's going to be a big advantage and they might be more likely to continue on with it and get a job, but there's not that many jobs. How do you grapple with that idea when you're trying to like recruit people to these camps and stuff?
Yeah, so, and that's where some of the soft skills stuff that you
Yeah,
alluded to
yeah.
earlier comes in, where it's like the students come because they're typically because they want to have this experience interacting with the
Hmm.
scientists, with other peers that are also excited about the same thing. Um, and I've told like some of my former field camp students about this in the past, is that like this is adulting camp. We just lure you here with dinosaurs. Um,
So learning how to be an adult, and
Kind of like
yeah,
if you're
yeah,
gonna
I
do
can see that.
field work, you got to know how
Uh-huh.
to cook, you got to
Yeah.
know how to clean your gear, you got to
Yep.
know how to load and unload and communicate
Yep.
and do
Be on time for
logistics and all
things, all
this.
of that.
Be on
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
like all this stuff that's involved in actually doing field work, not having someone walk you to a quarry, point to the spot, give you a
Right.
shovel. Like
Uh-huh.
yeah, you're digging up a dinosaur, but that's not field work.
Uh-huh.
That's digging.
Right.
And I don't mean to be flippant about that, but like I think that there's a reason why paleoscience in the broader public is sometimes patronized a little bit
Mm-hmm.
in ways that aren't very helpful for us because the most visible part of what we do is us digging holes in the desert. And
Right.
I know that that's like really reductive, but if
Uh-huh.
you don't know what goes into doing it, if you're just a broader member of the public, that's what it looks like.
Right.
And so by having these kids come in and say, yes, we're going to do field work, but here's all this stuff that you have to learn in order to do field work properly. There's record keeping
Yeah.
and all the logistics and everything else. Then if they go home and they're like, you know what, I still think paleo is cool. I don't know if I want to do it for a job.
Mm-hmm.
We hope that they still like it. It's not like they don't
Yeah.
like fossils anymore. It's just they've shifted their idea of it as a career path, but they still experience 2 weeks of
Right.
learning how important it is to have clear communication with their teammates. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that they can use across everything that they do,
Right.
not
Yeah.
just a career in paleontology. And so we really try to make sure that for the kids that are coming in and doing these camps, it's like if you want to keep doing this, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
pick up really good skills and meet people and all this other stuff. If you don't want to keep doing this, you're still going to pick up a lot of really good important skills because the skills that make somebody a good academic
Uh-huh.
are just skills that make somebody a good professional adult.
Right.
It's not sorcery.
Uh-huh. Right. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think hopefully that also instills a kind of respect for what science is, and if you can actually see that, you know, this is difficult stuff, it takes a lot of work, people being able to see that
Yep.
firsthand, I think is really important. So hopefully that kind of instills a lifelong appreciation for science in the people who are attending these
Yeah.
camps. And
And I think that there's oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
no, you first. Yeah.
I think that there's an element of understanding the difference between being good at school,
Mm,
like science classes,
right.
and being good at doing science as a practitioner.
Right. Yeah.
Because being good at school, you're very much on you're doing intake the entire time. And that's fine. Everyone goes through that process. I'm not trying to diminish it at all, but it's
Mm-hmm.
different. It's very different from being a contributor. And what we are trying to train these students to do when they come to us, even if they're like bottom, like age 15 years old that we do for the high school programs,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to give you a lot of information. You're going to be absorbing no matter what. But over the course of 2 weeks, our goal is to start turning you into a proactive contributor who
Hmm.
can see where there's a need and know how to try to address it. Even if you don't know how, you know to like ask questions, talk to your peers, talk to your supervisor, instructor, or whatever. It's teaching a level of just individual proactivity
Mm-hmm.
regardless of the situation. And being a scientist is all about being proactive.
Oh yeah.
You have a question. How are you going to solve it? How are you going to answer that question?
Right.
Well, you're going to have to go read like a quarter of a library's worth of text to make sure that somebody else hasn't done it already.
Uh-huh.
And then you're going to go collect data and you have to know how to collect it. And it's like you're basically teaching yourself whole subfields every time you take on a new research project,
Right.
which
Yeah, you
is
kind of have to know
just
everything that's come before you in order to be able to
right.
push that frontier of knowledge out a little bit further. It's
Right.
yeah,
And if you
yeah.
ask an employer outside of paleo or outside of academics, if you ask somebody that does hiring, what are you
Mm-hmm.
looking for? It's people with good communication skills. It's people who are proactive. It's people who know
Right.
how to handle problems on their own and not just throw their hands in the air. Like
Yeah.
it's universal. It really
Yeah.
is.
And it's funny that you say that too, because I've got a lot of friends and colleagues who they were in paleontology and then kind of realized that it's difficult to make a living to a certain extent. Oftentimes you have to take kind of a vow of poverty, and a lot of people just don't want to do that. They're like, I've gained
Yeah.
a lot of important skills here, and I can make a lot more money in the tech sector or in medicine or doing this or that. And I kind of feel like we as paleontologists are missing an opportunity there where a lot of these people who are deeply interested in our science and are making a decent amount of money in other fields, um, we're not necessarily like benefiting from that in ways that we could be. It's like we're leaving money on the table in some of these cases.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's something where we don't really museums do a good job of this because they have like donor cultivation and all this
Yeah, yeah.
stuff that they do in their communities. And that's
Mm-hmm.
great. It's as an academic field, like it's arguably underorganized. Um, and I think that we can pull good models from other career fields
Hmm.
to inform. I mean, we have less money by an absolute measure, but I don't know. The legal profession has really great professional, like, you're part of this little subunit, you came from
Right.
this university, and you
Mm-hmm.
kind of interface via all of these professional systems. And like, I feel like we don't try, or this is not something we do anymore. I don't know, maybe it used to be a thing and it
Hmm.
petered away at some point. But
Uh-huh.
like things that allow us to lift the entire operation by leveraging resources from folks who are both in the career field as well as folks who are just excited about it, give them a pathway to be supportive and try to keep them on board as a direct supporter, as opposed to just somebody who like claps their hands when there's a new BBC special.
Right. Yeah. We've got a relevant comment slash question here in the chat from H Street three
Sure.
four two. They say, indeed, it is about the money. I became a professional archaeologist despite the lack of pay because of the potential for contributing, and hopefully the money will follow. Is it the same in your field? To a certain extent, but like I feel like paleontologists generally are not as well paid as archaeologists. I don't have numbers on this, but I know there definitely are far fewer paleontologists in the world than there are
Yeah.
archaeologists. And I feel like that pay ceiling might even be lower than it is for archaeology. The highest people I know, the highest paid people I know in paleontology, they become like maybe museum directors or maybe like academic deans or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, and those jobs are few and far between. Um,
We also just don't talk about money very much. This is the other thing, is
yeah,
that like
yeah, it's almost
it's
considered
like,
kind of gauche.
did you go and do the field work? Did you publish a paper and
Mm-hmm.
not, hey, what are things you should do to set yourself up for a promotion that comes with more pay?
Uh huh.
Like having a conversation about not just professional methods and techniques
Mm-hmm.
for getting the work done, but how do you go about presenting yourself and your professional accomplishments and how you interact with your peers and all that stuff in a way where you're more likely to be able to access basically like a higher pay scale. I
Right.
think another issue is in not talking about it is that people have just been trained to not expect it. We have this very scare like this scarcity mindset where we're just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean obviously this is how it is and it's not doesn't occur to me to even try to break that system or seek out something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in no way saying that it's just people's imaginations that there's not a lot of money in paleo. Like the bank account balances don't lie,
Yeah.
but I think that without like breaking ethical boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
with some kind of cross training on other things, entrepreneurial skills or just general like professional practices, I think we can move the needle on this. It just
Huh.
requires us to get out of our own heads a little bit.
Uh huh. Well, because there definitely is a culture of almost like a vow of poverty kind of thing, where like when people are
Right, right,
starting up
right,
their careers in paleo, they're doing unpaid internships, they're doing volunteer work, and then this was kind of the way it worked with me, where I was really, really happy to be able to get any sort of paid gig whatsoever within paleo, even if it's making $7 an hour or something.
right.
And I'm working 70 hours a week, but only getting paid for 40 because that's the limit for the you
Right.
know, stuff like that. So it's almost
But
like
I
we're kind of
think
trained to do
some of
that.
that's a choice, though, by the people
Yeah.
that are creating the positions and how they're valuing the labor of the people doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, I'll give this example. And like, I don't know everyone's systems and I don't want to be,
Sure.
I don't know, patronizing. But like for the Sternberg camps, when I started hiring people,
Yeah.
because I used to teach everything. I
Uh-huh.
don't do that anymore. But it was a very deliberate decision that like we're going to make sure that we are paying people an amount that is
Mm-hmm.
going to be robust enough to be worth their time. Not just we're going to pay you enough to like keep our own costs low
Right.
and you're going to take what we give you.
Mm-hmm.
Um like our instructors, I think for 2 weeks, what is it? I want to say that one of our instructors for a 2 week camp, which they have to plan. So there's a lot of other work that comes before, to be
Sure.
fair. But for one 2 week camp, it's like 3,200.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you extrapolate that over like what that would be for a year,
Mm-hmm.
um, like 25 times 25 2 week periods times 3,200, like you're in the 75 to $80,000 a year range, which isn't gonna like get you a big house or anything like that.
Uh-huh.
But it's a respectable rate, and it was a
Yeah.
very deliberate decision to like we want to be able to recruit really good people to come work for us and
Right.
teach our students and help manage this program every summer.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, we need to offer a highly competitive pay so
Right.
that we can basically pull them away from something else that they didn't want to do.
Right.
And if paleo is kind of seen as a compared to other sciences, a relatively low skill field, we're not going to get we're not going to get the pay scale. But
Right.
if people see
Yeah.
paleo as a career field that generates people that are really good at solving complicated problems, they're really good at multivariate
Yeah.
research questions, like
Really
being able to take
complex
a lot of
stuff.
things that, yeah,
Yeah.
like disassociated fields, getting some chemistry, um, biology, and physics, and taking them all and slapping them together and
Mm-hmm.
being able to address a question. There's a thinking skills thing involved in being able to do that well that
Definitely.
goes beyond just like like are there fossil pigments in these bird feathers?
Sure. Yeah.
That's cool, but there's an underlying set of skills in order to do that that are very job market relevant,
Uh-huh.
regardless of field. And so, in my opinion, we need to sell the skills and the professionalism that we bring to the table, not just, oh, so you like dinosaurs. It's like, yeah, but that's not what's on that's not my CV. It's not on my
Yeah.
resume. And
Uh-huh.
people are making that assumption on their own.
Mm-hmm.
They see paleontologist and they make a set of assumptions because, again, this is getting into the weeds a bit, but
Uh-huh.
in my opinion, the brand of paleontology, especially vert paleo as a field,
Uh-huh.
has been kind of hijacked by other things that are outside of our control. And they've been helpful in some ways as far as public opinion, but it
Uh-huh.
also hurts us professionally because they're like, oh, so you go out to the desert, as I said before, and you dig holes in
Right.
the ground. It's like, well,
Uh-huh.
that's like a small fraction of my entire job, but that's
Sure.
not what people associate with it. Like if you think of a high level um, lawyer from like even a mid level school,
Mm-hmm.
what is it? What do you make? What assumptions do you make about their skills? They probably are focused. They have just a good database of information they've been able to memorize, like case law
Mm-hmm.
and all that. You make some quick assumptions about what this person brings to the table
Right.
with their training. And for somebody that has like at least a graduate degree in paleo and like good professional references,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that we have created an environment where we get the credit we deserve for hard skills or soft skills in many cases.
Interesting. Well, I want to drill into that idea about the perception of paleontologists by the general
Yeah.
public and by other professionals and stuff. You said that you feel like we haven't done the best job of selling this idea of us being uh, people with multivariate skill sets and stuff. How much of that do you think is
Right.
our own doing, and how much of that do you think is wider culture, movies, TV, stuff like that? How much of this is beyond
I
our
think it's
control?
both.
Yeah.
I think it's both. I think that there's an element of the pop culture part that gets us cool points, and cool points are very seductive because you
Yeah.
want to lean into that because then
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, dinosaurs, that's awesome. Like, oh, I wanted to be a paleontologist when I was a kid, and there's like this immediate traction. Like, I don't know how many people who are like, oh, you're an attorney. I really aspired to like do corporate tax law when I was in kindergarten. No one does
Right.
that. But if you
Yeah.
say that, the thing that they're impressed by is probably like, oh, you have this a job that has a lot of class status,
Oh, you mean if somebody is a
like a lawyer
an
or something
attorney?
like
Yeah. Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
versus
Mm-hmm.
paleontology. So there, it hits different. And
Uh huh.
so for paleo, there's this youthful aspirational component
Right.
that I think people come to, and they're like, "Oh, so you must get to do stuff with dinosaurs all day." And it's like, no, actually, I live in my email inbox and work with spreadsheets. But thank you for asking.
Uh
Um,
huh. Uh huh.
Really, like
Yeah.
if you have a
Yeah.
full time with benefits kind of job in paleo, you're probably spending more time with Microsoft than you are with actual fossils.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
better or worse, it's
Mm-hmm.
getting the work done. Um, so I think that both are contributing. I don't think we want to get rid of the public enthusiasm. Like
Of
that's
course not.
good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's come to have, I think, an outweighed level of control over how people, over the entire picture people think of when they think paleontologist.
Right.
Um, and that part, I don't know if that's helpful. And I
Hmm.
don't necessarily know a great way to shift that narrative other than for us to get people doing science communication to
Mm-hmm.
talk about basically the indoor part.
Right. I was
And
just
this
going to
is,
ask you
I'm not,
about this. Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
So
how can I
I'm in,
contribute to this kind of thing? You know?
right. So like, this is in no way me taking digs at the live streams you do, obviously, because those are
Mm-hmm.
amazing and really important too. I'm really clear about that. But
Appreciate you saying that.
this, like, Emily Grasley on the
Uh
Brain
huh.
Scoop does this amazing stuff with people like in collections and in museums, and it's very
Right.
behind the scene. And talking with researchers too, but some of her content on like the importance writ large of museum collections
Mm-hmm.
is excellent and really insightful and important to showing people how we do how we create new knowledge
Mm-hmm.
that humans have not known before. I think there's an underappreciated component of that where it's like, yeah, if you're doing all those other things, like you are discovering a new drug or you're figuring out a new technique in order to fix a broken organ or something like that.
Sure.
But in any science where you're doing research, you are discovering new things, even if they're little itty bitty tiny things in the
Mm-hmm.
big picture. We are incrementally creating new knowledge, and paleontologists do that too.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we internalize how spectacular that is the way that we should be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah,
Hmm.
I think that's kind of where I'm at on
Right.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've tried to showcase collections and the importance of fossil prep and the laboratory and all of this stuff too. And
Yeah,
there's often logistical hurdles in the way there. Like
right.
I don't know. It's sometimes difficult to get permission to like do a live stream from collections because well, we don't want these specimens to be on camera, and then this person is
Right.
visiting this time. There's a lot of that, but I'm working on doing more of that kind of thing. Um, but
As far as the
it's
research goes, like
yeah,
I think it's just we need different kinds of science communicators who have an opportunity
right.
to take a swing at these things. So like the stuff that you do, the Skeleton Crew, Emily Graz, like all these folks, they have niches that work really well. Weird
Mm-hmm.
and Dead, which is Amy and Megan.
Hmm.
They have this kind of podcast niche and public comms, I think works really well for their audience. No one's going to be everything to everyone.
Hmm.
But if we have more support, both professionally and vocally, and not kind of being like, oh, those are the SciComm people, and they're off at that table,
Right.
and
They're
all the
siloed off
researchers.
over there. They're not really doing,
Right.
yeah.
That's your
Yeah.
PR team. Don't be dumb.
Uh-huh.
Um, Seriously.
Yeah.
But if
No, I totally
we
agree.
we just need more people to have access to the resources and the research so that they can find ways to present it in ways that are going to be publicly engaging and get traction and get wider visibility. It's
Hmm.
the messenger's really important. Like you, I'm sure you know this too. If I were to start a podcast and talk about, I don't know, administrative skills in academia, which I could, like
Uh-huh.
I could go on
You've got the
forever
skills to do
about
that. Yeah, yeah.
that stuff,
Yeah.
but it's gonna be very boring to like 99% of people. But if
Sure.
some 20 something that has had robust contact and experience with, let's say, like CT scanning paleo, like some of this
Uh-huh.
newer stuff that's coming out,
Sure.
um, and they have access to people who are experts in it, and they've done a bit of it themselves, and they are in the good graces of a lab manager that has one of these machines,
Hmm.
and they have a style that lends itself to very concisely and dynamically explaining
Right.
how this research works,
Hmm.
then we can start to gain some ground on people understanding that like we're doing really high end like micro CT, and there's some chemistry stuff I won't pretend to understand with like finding pigments and other
Sure.
compounds in fossilized tissues. Um, yeah, we just need more messengers to get a chance to try.
Hmm. I like that. I like that idea of like diversity of perspectives and diversity of different styles and different media and that kind of thing. It's
I
I've
mean, how
been
many people have a sports podcast? Like these
yeah.
ecosystems aren't small.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I feel incredibly fortunate to have been able to carve out a little niche for myself here on Twitch, and I'm super happy in my day-to-day life. Like this has been wonderful. It's kind of a dream come true, and
Right,
I've been looking for different ways to help contribute to paleontology more generally, whether it's through
right.
fundraising like for St. George that we were doing last year, or
Yeah, yeah, that
hopefully
was
doing some
great.
outreach for SVP at the meeting this year and the Fossil Finder series. Um, I want to thank you again for that, David. Like your encouragement there, and that's been a big deal for me, and I it feels
Yeah.
wonderful to be able to contribute. So, yeah, everybody in the chat, make sure that you thank David for this as well.
But this is so I made the joke about like me coming on and talking about administrative skills or like
Uh huh.
PR and marketing or something that's just like not part of how we think about our field
Hmm.
of paleontology. Like it's
Right.
not doing the thing. But and I had some other conversations about this at SVP where like I was really hitting it hard with like your brand management needs work, like this needs work. The way you think about SVP as a
Right.
service entity for membership. So you
Uh
should
huh.
be delivering services and
People should be getting some value for the
right,
money that they're
there's a
putting into a
value
membership
delivery
fee.
component to this
Yeah.
that we need to be very thinking about in very deliberate, concrete terms.
Yeah.
And having people be like, I've been in SVP for like 20, 40 years, whatever. I've
Hmm.
and having never heard anyone say these words before.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's something where it's like if you don't have people who feel valued and welcomed in that community space who have these more diverse skills, like I'm not going to be I probably won't publish any more research for the rest of my life. It's just not a priority for me.
Hmm.
But I can come in and have a real impactful conversation about how to retain members by rethinking how this organization views itself.
Right.
And if no one's really come to the table with experience and knowledge on how to do that,
Hmm.
that's really impactful. And it's not me really doing anything outside of my normal job. It's
Right.
just that
Yeah.
I'm bringing my job to the entity.
Yeah. And this entity, by the way, for anybody who's following along at home and a little confused about what SVP is, the Society of
Sure.
Vertebrate Paleontology. So this is our big
Yeah.
global organization for paleontologists who study critters with bones.
Yep.
Dinosaurs included, obviously, but every other critter from cartilaginous fishes to mammoths as well.
Yep.
And so, David, you're head of the communications committee. Um,
I'm half of the communications committee, but yeah,
half of the
I'm
communications
co-chair.
committee.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. How did that come about? And could you maybe tease us a little bit on some things that might be coming up there,
Sure.
if you can?
Yeah, so I ran the virtual meeting in 2023, 22, something like that,
Yeah,
I think. And you did a presentation
yeah,
during
that was
that, which was
23.
great.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And part of my big push for that was like at the time, Stuart Sumida, Dr. Sumida, was the vice president of SVP. He's now the
Hmm.
president of the society.
Yeah, we're hoping to
And
bring him
so
on
I
for
had a
an
lot of
interview sometime
meetings.
soon. Actually, Stuart's great, and it'd be great to
Yeah,
interview him here. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And so I kind of got to know him through that because he was the liaison to the virtual meeting, to me,
Hmm.
how leadership works in SVP.
Sure.
And then I had a really good conversation with him at GSA, I think in 2024.
The Geological
Um,
Society of America meeting. Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I'm just
Yeah.
kind of like
That's okay.
throwing out these acronyms. Um, and I was like, I would like to have a conversation with you because he was about to start his term as SVP president
Uh-huh.
about branding and marketing for the society.
Hmm.
So, like, I have some thoughts. I'd like to share them with you. Do you want to have lunch? Um, and pretty quick after that, at the next SVP meeting in Minneapolis, um, there was basically the other co-chair of communications committee, Matt Borths,
Hmm.
I think he's at Duke. Um, he was like, we need to overhaul communications. Like, we just need to basically do a ground up rebuild.
Hmm.
Excuse me. And he presented a plan that actually was pretty darn close to what I had just finished telling Stuart.
Oh, cool. Independently
Um,
of what you were talking
yeah,
about.
independently.
That's kind
And
of
so
beautiful, that
Stuart
confidence there.
was
Yeah.
Yeah, so Stuart was in the meeting where this was being discussed, and he was like, "That sounds great. I know exactly who to plug into this." And so he came and found me at the Minneapolis meeting and was like, "This is what Matt said. This is what I recall you telling me about. You should probably be the one to go do this." And so I was like, "Yeah, sure, sounds great."
Nice.
So
Yeah.
as far as things coming, one of the big pushes is putting ourselves into media spaces where other people are at.
Hmm.
That is low cost because the
We don't have
money
much of a
issue, which we were
budget.
talking about
Yeah.
before. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're starting with like I'm recruiting people and coming up with these very content region focused um, podcast programs. And so there's
Hmm.
yours, Fossil Finders, which is very focused on like people doing field work. There's Fossil Trails USA with Matt and Max, which is federal paleontologists or former federal paleontologists.
Hmm.
Um, we've got one coming that is called it fell out of my brain. Um, Methods with Backbone. That's what we decided on.
Ah. Okay.
And it's more produced and it's got
Uh-huh.
like a whole team on it. But
Nice.
what they're doing is creating like these 20-minute chunks where they break down a specific method from a research paper.
What would be an
So
example of this?
so let's say you're wondering how your, some statistic worked or
Okay.
some a use of like some histological technique
Okay.
worked in a
Yeah.
paper, like how they're measuring
The growth rings
tissue
inside a bone. Yeah.
anatomy, growth rings, like
Yeah. Yeah.
something like that.
Uh-huh.
Let's take a technique from a recent paper that
Hmm.
may have fairly wide interest,
Uh-huh.
and let's break it down like a upper division, like senior undergrad to like early grad student level,
Nice.
so more advanced.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're going to do a 20-minute explainer on here's the technique. This is why they used it in this paper, and this is
Uh-huh.
how it works. And so it's like 5 minutes on those first two things, and then
Uh-huh.
a solid 15 minutes on like we're gonna very deliberately walk the audience through the method so that if they have enough to go and learn more on their own,
Right.
if they so choose.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know, if you're doing research sometimes, there's some new method and you're reading all these papers and like it's kind of in the abstract
Yep.
and it can be difficult to get that like, I don't know, exit that
Kind of
cognitive exit velocity.
sure, yeah. To really understand the nuts and bolts of how it really works. Like you
Right.
see the end product, but like in like a method section in
Why
a
was
paper
this
can
the
only go so
technique you
far.
chose? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay. Some more
And then how does
background
it
on it.
work?
Like what's
Sorry.
the
Yeah.
philosophy behind it? Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the nitty-gritty of like why is this an appropriate technique to use with this data? Why is it
Uh-huh.
an appropriate technique to use with this question?
Right, yeah.
Um,
Yeah. This sounds really
and the
cool.
yeah, I'm very optimistic about it. And the idea being that eventually we can build a library
Uh-huh.
of these things. And if you're like a grad student or an undergrad or even an early career, like you're in your job and you have to do some research project,
Sure.
and you can go to this library of videos
Uh-huh.
and you can like eventually we'll have a lot. Obviously we have zero right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you can find like, oh, this is a video that's just on like I don't know, multivariate regression analysis or something. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's in the context of this paper.
Uh-huh.
And I'm gonna watch this video that very gently explains how the fundamentals of it work,
Right.
which I can then be like, okay, okay, so I've now got, and I now understand it 40% instead of 0%.
Right. Yeah. And it can give people the confidence to be able to approach publications, different papers, and be like, okay, I know what this term means now. I'm following, you know. Much
Right.
Crisis in the chat says, OMG, I would have loved this for isotope geochem. And
Yep.
I want to echo that sentiment as well. Like, as somebody who does science communication full time, if I had like a library of in-depth videos explaining different methods, like, you know, bootstrapping and phylogenetic analysis or something like that, like, and I could
Right.
just show that really quickly, be like, here's some background on this. If you really want to get in depth, here's a link. You can watch this yourself, but here's, you know, the skinny on it for right now, and then we can move on to another topic that we're, you know,
Right.
that would be really helpful for me personally. So I'm jazzed about this. I don't think we've discussed this before. This is the first time hearing about it. This is exciting
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just compartmentalized.
Yeah.
Um, and the thing I'll point out, which is relevant to some of our earlier conversation, is that other professional fields already do this.
Really.
Like if you go onto YouTube, let's say, and you
Uh-huh.
are trying to figure out the basics of like coding in HTML,
Sure.
CSS because you want to make a website.
Uh-huh.
So much
World's your oyster.
content.
Yeah. Yeah.
So much content.
Yeah.
If you're trying to figure out how marketing and branding is best practice over the past 3 to 4 years. Really good content. It's not there's a lot
Oh.
of it. Like it's well made, it's a high volume and high quality.
Uh-huh.
And like we are a smaller interest area than these other
Sure.
fields. So I'm not saying that we don't need to do that.
Yeah.
But if I want to learn about the fundamentals, if you really want to learn, obviously like take classes and do all of this stuff. But if you want to get
Mm-hmm.
some like fundamentals so that you have a workable understanding of a thing. You can go to YouTube if this is how you learn. I know some
Right.
folks are like, I don't want videos, give me a book. That's
Mm-hmm.
great. There are books on this stuff
Oh yeah.
already. You're already
Yeah.
set. Um, but there's other professions that have this stuff in abundance. And I was just like, I feel like our stuff stops at like mid college right
Interesting.
now.
The resources that we
There's
have
some
available
folks,
for people are there's a ceiling there in terms of how in depth it gets. You mean?
yeah, uh, there's a ceiling on how advanced the target audience is,
Interesting.
I think.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So like there's a channel called your I think it's called Your Dinosaurs Are Wrong or something
Oh
like
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah. I've been on some
And
panels
they
with that guy before. Yeah.
yeah, and they do I think some nice breakdowns at a slightly more technical level of topics and a few papers they sprinkle in and they give a
Hmm.
citation. And it's not just the content, it's the way that they're talking about it and they give a citation for the paper
Hmm.
in the video. And so it's treated a bit more, it's the whole brand of the program, but I think it's treated
Hmm.
a bit more responsibly as something that is teaching people how to think like an academic, quite
Yeah,
specifically.
yeah. I can see that. Yeah.
And like the Skeleton Cruise stuff, their videos are often, it feels like you're just sitting at a table at a meeting. Like they're
Hmm.
doing live streams and stuff, but it's a bunch of paleontologists bantering
Sure.
over some given topic, and it's fabulous. And they've had a very receptive audience to it. And it's a very different niche from what I've seen other people doing.
Hmm.
But they're also like a bunch of folks who kind of all went through PhD programs at the same time, and the
Right.
kind of insights that they're going to be able to bring on the practice of doing paleontological research that's more collections and like lab based versus field work is just different from what I think's been really accessible and available to folks. And
Huh.
so I think we're starting to like we've had enough people kind of grow up in this internet era and are
Hmm.
comfortable with new media, and now they're taking their skills and they're saying, you know what, I could talk about this.
Uh-huh.
I could like me, like be the change you want to see in the world. And I'm optimistic that I don't know, over the next 10 years or so, hopefully we'll see a lot more of these niches basically being filled in our information space.
Right. Okay. I like that a lot. Yeah. And this is kind of like higher level than a lot of the stuff I'm used to thinking about because I mean a lot of this is dependent on whatever the medium is that you're presenting these things on, whether it's YouTube or a podcast or whether it's Twitch or something like that. Um, I don't know. I find that I try and strike a balance here on paleontologizing between talking about the nitty gritty details of new papers and stuff like that, and then basic information like, here's this concept of continental drift that like a lot of folks haven't
Right.
really heard about before, stuff like that. And so it's just because we're here on Twitch and people are constantly trickling in and trickling out, and we have everybody from high school kids through professional paleontologists in the chat. There's like it's an interesting dance that I have to do, I think. And in a lot of
I
these other
but
media,
I
yeah, go ahead.
but it's an ecosystem. And
Yes.
and I think that we do ourselves a disservice if we're putting different messengers and the message they're bringing and the content they're bringing on different tiers.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I don't know, if you've got a larger audience or if you have a smaller audience, like I know that there's very real ramifications to audience size and
Sure.
fiscal things and all that. But
Mm-hmm.
like if you have a growing audience and you have an enthusiastic audience,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you're doing, so long as it is generally more helpful than it is regressive to the field,
Sure. Yeah.
great.
Uh-huh.
But like I use these other fields as an example. Like there are I'm like a moderate football fan. Like I'm not a fanatic, but like I
Okay.
watch content on it. And
Uh-huh.
there are programs where they give you like this big hypey 100-mile view picture of something that's happening, and it's a lot of maybe more style than it necessarily is substance. Like they're informative, but it's basically news. And there's
Okay.
other ones you can watch where they will take um, film
Mm-hmm.
from like a college football game, and they will just do 30 minutes on just like the defensive scheme from one team from one game.
Okay. Interesting. So you're getting into
Like
like the philosophy underpinning different strategies playing a
right, and
game of
like there's
football.
this player and he's 6'5", and like
Mm-hmm.
this is why they put him on this other guy on the other team. Like he's covering this person, and this is why they
Uh-huh.
probably did that. And here's what they're trying to do with this motion on the
Mm-hmm.
defense. Like it gets very technical.
Uh-huh.
and I watch both of them.
Mm-hmm. And you're getting
And
different things out of both of them.
I'm getting very different things from both of them. And
Uh-huh.
I have no interest in going and coaching football. I just think it's interesting.
Uh-huh.
That's it. I'm a moderately I don't know, Oregon Ducks football fan because I went there for college.
Uh-huh.
And if somebody's going to do a 20-30 minute video breaking down their defensive scheme from like a playoff game,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'll watch that. That sounds because then the next time I watch a game,
Mm-hmm.
it may allow me to appreciate what I'm seeing on screen in a way that I did not before. And
Hmm.
that's just a mindset thing. Like, do you want to be somebody that has kind of a growth mindset about things? Do you not? Like, it's an individual choice.
Mm-hmm.
If you do, maybe even if you're not a professional practitioner, maybe the more technical content is still interesting to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, that's fine too.
Huh.
They have enough for everybody to pursue things to the level that they want. But
Uh-huh.
man alive, people love dinosaurs, and in my opinion, like if we can give them a full like
Sure.
stratified ecosystem of content where they can be the ones to choose how far into they're getting,
Right.
that's the best thing that we can do for our public perception of paleontology is
Mm-hmm.
give people access to the full picture
I
with the
like that
right
perspective.
messengers.
Yeah, yeah. Um, you and I have talked before about how paleontology can be kind of like a gateway into the sciences for a lot of people. Um, do you feel like that confers a certain kind of responsibility to paleontologists? Or,
Interesting. What do you mean? I mean,
well,
the answer is
I
yes,
might
but I
like,
think it
I'm
depends.
kind of broadening out into like a societal perspective here, where it's like, especially in the US right now, there's so much like official hostility towards science going on.
Sure.
And I don't know. I've talked about this with colleagues, and some people are of the opinion like, hey, I didn't get into this field to, you know, to be a public advocate or a public servant or anything. Like, I'm just interested in this topic and I want to pursue it and I want to publish papers
Sure.
on it. Um,
The world will
I
exert itself upon you whether you like it or not. That is one thing I will say.
yeah, that is absolutely true. I think few people would disagree with that. I don't know. And I'm much more on the opposite side of that perspective that I was talking about, where like
Sure.
I'm eager to get out there and talk to people and try and be a public advocate for things. Um, yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, this is maybe not the fairest question, but like, do you think that we have a responsibility to do that when when external forces come in and kind of push us in this direction? That like,
Do we have a responsibility to do it? I mean, I know that's a nebulous we that you're
yeah,
using.
it is
Um,
purposefully so. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, I think that people who are professional practitioners within any particular field of science
Uh huh.
I mean, it's in their best interest to stick up for the thing that's their career.
Right.
So it's maybe less about like, um, it's maybe less about
Well, I think
responsibility.
I'm making this difficult by almost putting it in like a moral framing, which yeah, that's probably not fair or helpful. Um, I don't know. Different people have different abilities, different skills, different
Right.
proclivities, and it takes lots and lots of different kinds of people to do science, especially paleontology. Um, I think if anything, maybe we in paleo people kind of tend a little bit more toward being outgoing and gregarious and willing to do outreach and stuff like that.
I think we also don't need, we don't want to force people to be public messengers who
Hmm.
are going to be bad at it.
Right. That's a really good point because not everybody's cut out to do that. Um,
Yeah, and so like if someone I think if someone finds a thing they care about enough to advocate for it publicly and they're being, I don't know, helpful and not just kind of, I don't know, swinging a baseball bat around, so to speak,
sure.
then I think that we should welcome them and encourage it. The thing that I would be careful of is, I don't know, being overly shamey about people who don't want to be in front of a camera
Right.
and
Yeah.
being like, okay, there are other ways that you can be supportive of these things without making YouTube videos or without
Absolutely.
doing live
Yeah.
streams, things like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's more of just kind of a pathway awareness thing.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know. If somebody's a scientist and they want to donate to the ACLU, high
Hmm.
five.
Right.
Great.
Hmm.
Um, if they are donating to their local museum, like, or they're volunteering their time to be on a graduate committee of someone that is kind of outside of their normal
Sure.
purview or responsibility. Like,
Uh-huh.
I think that there's a lot support can look, or they're just calling their representatives and advocating for science. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can be supportive
Hmm.
without necessarily having to be a public advocacy voice the
Right.
way that I think you're kind of framing it.
Hmm. I guess I asked that question in the first place because a lot of us who are doing outreach as kind of like the core of our career, I think many of us are kind of responding to attitudes within paleo or even other sciences maybe in particular where people say, well, the people who are doing outreach are doing it because they failed doing it other things. It's like kind of that old canard about those who can do and those who can't teach. And I think it's tempting for many of us who are doing outreach full time to push back against that, but push back too far. We're almost scolding other researchers who are not doing outreach. This is something like an impulse that I have to curb in myself sometimes because
Sure.
when I'm looking at the world around us and going, well, science is in a really tough spot in the U.S. right now, and if we just had more advocacy, maybe that would help things out. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's not always a productive kind of impulse, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, I've got all kinds of opinions about that. I think my first kind of reflexive response um, is everyone that has become a skilled practitioner of something benefited from the intelligence, skills, and time of teachers.
Hmm.
So I think that that attitude, uh, do you bleep things out? I don't want to use profanity if it's not allowed, or
This is generally a family-friendly stream, but if you're prefacing it
got it.
like that, you can speak freely because people will know to
I think that that
plug their
attitude
ears.
is counterproductive and stupid.
Yeah.
And demonstrably so. Like, it's, you don't really have to paint a very detailed picture before you're like, hey, don't be a dick to teachers and people that do advocacy work.
Hmm.
You directly benefit from them constantly. Like, if you had to learn all this, if you had to literally be self-taught, you'd be 20 years behind where you're at. So,
Uh-huh.
regardless of what people think about their abilities to teach themselves things, your ability to become a skilled learner are shaped by teachers who put you in a situation where you could learn how to learn, like at the most fundamental level.
Right.
And as far as outreach, yeah, I know that there's a lot of patronizing attitudes there too.
Hmm.
Um,
And sometimes that's not entirely undeserved. Like, to be fair, a lot of the science communication and outreach that you see online is not necessarily the highest quality. I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but
sure, sure, sure,
sometimes I think there's that issue where the metric that people use to try and measure how successful they are with something becomes the actual target. So people kind of miss the point of what some outreach is, where it's like, well, if we get a lot of attention for something, then we're doing really good outreach. But oftentimes the quality isn't there. That's something that I see a lot, and I try and guard
I
against
think,
in what I do. But yeah.
yeah, I think that people also turn their own success into everybody else's benchmark. I think that this is a problem that people sometimes have where they're like, I'm
Huh.
good at this, and you exist in an adjacent career space,
Right.
and you wanted to have my job at one point, but you don't, and that must mean that you're not good enough for it, and
Right.
therefore you are a lower class of contributor than I am because I did the harder thing
Hmm.
and you didn't. And at a very technical absolute level, I can understand how they wandered towards that mentality
Uh-huh.
because we also train people to think like that in academia. Like there's
Hmm.
tests and you have to pass this exam and you have to do comps and there's all these hoops you have to jump through. And presumably if somebody stopped jumping through the hoops and didn't get like the big career job, that just means they're not good enough. I think people assume a lot of, I think sometimes people take more credit for their own superiority and don't acknowledge the subjectivity of circumstances that got them to where they are.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Like, or to put it more shortly, be more humble and less of a jerk.
Hmm.
Like, there's that too.
Hmm.
But I don't know if if I were to frame what I do in the same way.
Hmm.
I hire and supervise north of 30 people every year for the camps, and we do
Hmm.
training and we do all this stuff, and there's this whole recruitment period. And last year I was managing like a nearly $500,000 budget for this program.
Hmm.
And like, if I wanted to use certain metrics and say, well, you don't have these particular metrics of success. You didn't build something over the course of 10 years to the point where it is
Sure.
XYZ.
Uh-huh.
Therefore, you're actually the one who is underperforming.
Right.
Like,
You could set up those
it's
rules so that you come out on top and sneer down at other people. It's I think I get what you're saying. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And it's like, I did try to do a PhD. It wasn't for me, and
Hmm.
I avoided that particular pathway, and I think that it's worked out pretty well. Um, but I definitely remember facing kind of an uphill climb with what rooms I could get into and how seriously I could be taken in certain situations. I think
Sure.
another thing that people make the mistake of is that they think that because they're passionate
Hmm.
or because they have certain letters after their name or whatever, that they are owed something. And this is
Hmm.
something that I think is really, really important for folks who are early in their academic adventure, early career to understand, is
Okay.
that you are owed nothing.
Right. So you shouldn't have this idea of entitlement like that. Like,
Right.
yeah.
If there's something that you want, one, you're gonna have to interact with other people. So you need to have people skills. This is the soft
Hmm.
skills stuff we're talking about before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and you also need to put yourself into the spaces or earn yourself into the spaces where the
Hmm.
people who are making higher level decisions where they are. And if you're not, if you are like, I'm only going to do things my way, and you're going to be real stubborn about it, you're welcome to. Your results may vary. And I have these conversations a lot with some of my staff as well as some of the high schoolers who are like very smart. I'm very
Uh-huh.
blessed, fortunate to work with a lot of people who are probably a lot smarter than me, just like raw cognitive horsepower.
Hmm.
Um, but I think a difference is that my impulse to pursue getting myself into those spaces. So I'm kind of playing a different game where I'm not trying to continue being good at school forever,
Okay. I see what
but
you mean. Yeah.
treating this as something where it's like it's a lot of human communication, networking, and all this other stuff.
Hmm.
Um, if you acknowledge and seek new skills outside of what your core training is, you're probably going to be better off. If you are stubborn and think that you should only be obligated
Hmm.
to get better at the your favorite things, you might not get the results you want unless you're like one of the best two or three people at that thing in the whole planet.
Fair. Yeah.
That's just my experience.
Yeah. I I would hope that would be an uncontroversial viewpoint, but I don't
But
know.
like you
Yeah.
said, there's a lot of patronizing attitudes, and there's a lot
Uh-huh.
of like, if you can't do, you teach, and da 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 da.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I think some of that's just human nature, not necessarily something that we only deal with here, like in paleo.
Uh-huh.
But I think to a certain degree, um, you're going to get the outcome that you're willing to pursue at the level you're willing to pursue it. Like I have this conversation with students too. Like at a certain point, this career stuff becomes blood magic. Like you're gonna have other people that are willing to do more or
Uh-huh.
sacrifice more in order to get a certain outcome. And that's an individual choice. No one's gonna make you. But if your competition for a
Hmm.
job is somebody that went to like University of Michigan for their undergrad, and then they did their graduate work at like, I don't know, some other R1, University of Florida, and they go and do a PhD at Yale or something like
Hmm.
that. Like that's your competition.
Hmm.
If you want XYZ kinds of jobs, if you want like a big job as a museum's collection, like a curator, or you want to be a
Sure.
professor, something like that. Like that's just the playing field.
Hmm.
And if you want to compete on it, you kind of need to acknowledge the full extent of what the competition is going to be. That's not to say that you can't do something else, and there should not be shame in that, and it should
Right.
not be seen as doing more or less. It's a
Hmm.
matter of what you want to do and what you're willing to give to do it. And this
That
this
makes
was the
sense. Yeah.
conversation that got me off of this when I was considering taking another swing at a PhD.
Right.
And my master's advisor was like, I have all the faith in the world that you could do it if you wanted to. I
Hmm.
don't think you're willing, I don't think you would be happy or willing to sacrifice as much as you would need
Right.
to do it successfully, like
That's not always an easy
really
conversation to
well.
have, but because for a lot of people, they're not willing to put that much in because they're disadvantaged from the start. Like infrastructurally, they might
Yeah.
be coming from a situation where like it's not easy for them to be able to, go through all of the schooling and everything. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, and it's
And that comes full circle to the camps a little bit, because like part of the reason for their being is
mhm,
experiential elevation
right.
that
They get to see what
any
these
kid
things are
can
actually like.
access. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
price tag component. We have scholarships that we
Hmm.
deploy to try to make sure that they're as equitably accessible as possible.
Uh huh.
Um, but that's kind of a big part of their reason for being as well.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. For I know that we've got new viewers who have trickled in and everything. Let's do another like little plug for the
Sure.
Sternberg camps and tell us what they're about and everything, and we'll put a link in the chat.
Yeah, so hello, folks who are a bit more recent coming in. My name is David Levering. I'm the director of the Sternberg Museum Science Camps program based out of the Fort Hays State University Sternberg Museum of Natural History. Um, and the Sternberg Science Camps are a program primarily for middle and high school students. We have some elementary camps, but they're mostly for our local folks in Kansas.
Mhm.
Um, we have overnight middle and high school programs. And the high school ones are all over the country. So we have things from Tennessee to North Dakota to Utah, et cetera, et cetera. And they're, to put it very shortly, they're basically like pre-college professional development programs with a bunch of peers who are also the same age group, who are also really excited about paleontology, geology, life science, and working with graduate students, upper division undergrads, um, on those topics. And it's everything from field paleo, fossil prep. We have a program at University of Missouri this summer focused on CT technology and paleontology.
Cool.
Um, we've got a grad student, soon to be Dr. Emily Bogner, um,
Oh, nice.
coming over
Yeah.
from Berkeley to do a program on like how to go about a full taxonomic ID for like a new mammal skull. So like if you find something out in the field, how do you go about diagnosing it taxonomically
Hmm.
in order to, if you wanted to try to publish it and say it was a new species, like what does that work look like? And so it's basically a 2 week hyper focus on that. And that's for some of our returning students, like our second year plus. Yeah, got all kinds of stuff all over the
Awesome.
place.
When does enrollment start for the camps?
Started 2 weeks ago,
Oh,
so
all
we're open
right.
right
So it's
now.
already going. I
Yep.
should update that command there. I said enrollment's open soon. Um, yeah, and generally, how many students are we talking per year, and how many different camps?
Last year we had about 100 different individual high schoolers. Some students do more than one camp, and so I think we had like 120 slots filled.
Hmm.
Um, our minimum for any individual camp is 7, and we cap at 10.
Gotcha. Okay. So pretty
Yeah.
small groups. I mean, this is
Yeah.
yeah, that's really cool.
With 3 staff on
Uh-huh.
each one. So it's 3 staff to at most 10 students, and the amount of contact and kind of conversational time that the students get
Hmm.
with the staff is really, 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 really high.
We had some people in the chat saying like, "Man, if I were able to do this in high school, that would have been a life-changing experience for me." And I'm sure for a lot of people, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
How many years have you been doing this for, and do you have any particular stories to share about how this was really impactful in somebody's life, maybe?
Oh, I mean, plenty of stories about impact.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started the program in 2013. Um, it obviously started a lot smaller. So like I think our first year we had like 13 kids total or something
Hmm.
across a couple programs.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I think in 2017 was a big growth year where we saw like a pretty large, it was the first year I hired anyone external. Like I wasn't the only instructor.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, from there we obviously there's some turbulence during like COVID lockdowns as far as enrollment. We did virtual stuff, it was fine.
Hmm.
As far as impact, we're just now really starting to see some of this because we
Hmm.
get the students pretty young
Right.
and then they have to go through college, and we get some like we show some positive outcomes when they're at university, but like we don't have a lot that have applied to grad school yet or have been applying for jobs on the
Gotcha.
other
Okay.
side of college or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Um, and there's also just the general attrition rate. Like we're not expecting to monopolize the entire career field of paleontology with just our program alumni.
Right. Yeah.
It's mathematically improbable, I think.
Yeah. Even in
Um,
a field as small as ours, it's still yeah.
yeah, but I think so some of our alumni, we've got a whole feature that we do on Instagram at Sternberg Camps, where I've been doing like Alumni Monday. We've got an
Hmm.
album of them on Facebook. I think that the biggest outcome is just them having a peer group from a really early age that are also
Hmm.
really professionally motivated young people. So like they know
Huh.
that they want to do this or at least try to do this as a job.
Uh-huh.
Um, and they also are meeting other professionals along the way. So like we've got a
Hmm.
pretty good kind of hit rate for our instructors going on and getting jobs, like career jobs elsewhere.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
And so the instructors they're working with are frequently folks who are not just really smart, but they're very hireable. They're good with
Hmm.
people. They have all these other attributes that we've been talking about.
Right.
And that allows them to kind of, it's not just, I'm going to sit on a whiteboard and kind of tell you things.
Hmm.
It's, we're going to do some education, but I'm also going to just set a good example as somebody that is a young professional.
Hmm.
And I think that students being exposed to that full breadth of, I don't know, important information and experience, um, I think we've got good evidence that it's highly impactful. Not to say that our students wouldn't be successful otherwise,
Hmm.
but if you just kind of know how to act in academic
Right. Yeah.
spaces as a
Uh-huh.
freshman versus as
Uh-huh.
a junior, you've got a leg up 2 years
Oh yeah.
early
That's a big head
versus your
start
peers.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is something that I'm really interested in, like thinking about paleontology as a broad discipline. How do we propagate ourselves? You know, like I think about all of these different programs that kind of act as like incubators for young paleontologists. You know, you've got the national park system, you got like petrified forest, you've got
Yeah.
ashfall fossil beds up in state park in Nebraska, and you know, a lot of people who have gone on to have really cool careers and really contributed to this field, they started off in places like this. And so I'm do you feel like the Sternberg camps is starting to move into that territory where it's becoming one of these kind of important incubators? Because it certainly seems like it's moving in that direction.
I mean, I try not to be too self-important about these things,
You can toot your own
honestly.
horn here. This is the place for it.
Um, I mean, we employ a lot of young paleontologists in the summer. Like I said, we had
Right,
30
yeah.
staff this past year. So
Uh-huh.
I think that there's definitely impact there. And we employ a lot of our alumni, like they go to college, they come back
Hmm.
as teaching assistants.
Oh,
We've
cool.
had we've had a few get old enough to where they've been full-on instructors for us and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
Um, one of my goals for this is to have students who are kind of vetted as being generally just good people. So they have to like again, they have to get a rec letter. They're
Yeah,
going through maybe doing 2, 3 summers. They've got good reviews from their staff that they're a good team contributor. They're a healthy person to be around, all that good stuff.
sure.
Um, and I think one of my benchmark goals is just can we provide an early springboard for students who are not only smart, but want to make a broadly positive contribution to the field and make it kind of a healthier place to exist.
Yeah.
So less of like the workaholic toxicity that comes
Uh-huh.
with some jobs where it's just you got to put in the hours,
Yeah.
but maybe making it less of a contest and more of just a reality.
Yeah.
Um, and
I
also
like that.
having like this network of people who have known each other for a long time. Trust is really important in these kinds of spaces
Mm-hmm.
because it allows you to pull people into projects that you know are going to follow through.
Right.
Um, so I don't know. As far as how important it is in the broader field of paleontology, I think that we're producing some really good young professionals who are going to go into all kinds of different career fields, some in science, some not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Beyond that, I hope so. Um,
Yeah.
I think getting too hung up on that on my end would result in um, new anxiety that I don't want or need.
Fair, yeah. I'm looking at this from the outside and being like, well, this is really cool. Like I can see this being, you know, 10, 20, 30 years down the line.
Sure,
Will
sure,
this
sure,
be one
sure.
of these programs that, you know, you hear about again
That'd
and
be
again and
nice.
again? Lots of people can kind of trace their pedigree through this program, and I think that's a really neat idea. Just thinking about the future of our field. So I really admire what you're
We
doing here, and I don't know. I think it's really
Well,
cool.
thank you.
Yeah.
We've already got some former students because I like touch base with them. Some of them come back as TAs and I kind of talk with them through that context. But like we
Uh
already
huh.
have some of our former students who are doing committee work on SVP and they're like in their
Mm-hmm.
early 20s.
Uh huh.
Um,
That's
and
incredible. Yeah.
right, and they're coming in with like a real desire to contribute on something. They don't
Right.
need to be like in charge or taking on a giant project, but they're like
Yeah.
I would like to help.
Right.
I would
And
like
so
to be in
committee
this
work for
space and
anybody
contribute.
who's not
Sure.
not really
Yeah.
following
Sorry.
it's
Then
no, it's
again,
okay. Yeah, yeah. Um so like in a minor leadership role within the Society of Vertebrate Paleontology. So they're helping out
yeah,
with outreach or I don't know, helping organize the conference and you know, just
yeah,
doing these kind of slightly lower stakes but you know, still really vital jobs in running the society and running the conference and things like that. Yeah.
right.
Um
Yeah, and like it's volunteer labor, and we need
mhm.
as many people as we can get who want to get in there and help support the mission of the
Right.
society. And
Mhm.
so, like, I've recruited quite a few to communications committee because I'm co-chair, and so I can pull people in on things that I think they'd be good
Yeah,
at.
that's what you did with me.
But we've
Yeah.
got yeah, but we've got another former student, Ethan Hovermail, who's over on development. So he's over on the fundraising committee, and I
Nice.
think he might
Yeah.
be on the student postdoc liaison committee too. But he was just like, that seems interesting. Like David
Hmm.
said, I should look into committees, and I like that one, so I'm gonna email the committee chair and see if I can get on it. And he's
Hmm.
an undergrad. Like
Uh-huh.
I think he's a senior
Good for
in
him.
college.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I want to shift gears a little bit, kind of back
sure.
to SVP for a second, the Society of Vertebrate
Yeah.
Paleontology. Um, let's maybe talk about what are your thoughts on the importance of a scientific society like this to the science of paleontology in general? You know, like what role does that serve for us as paleontologists? Why is it important for us to have an organization like SVP and for people to participate in it and, you know, be in leadership positions and
So
all?
obviously, like we kind of talked before, I have my opinions on how SVP comports itself in the way it serves members. And that's something we're working on. And I think you're going to see a lot of changes in
Hmm.
that, a lot of improvements over the next 5 to 10 years.
Uh-huh.
Aspirationally, SVP exists as an organizing and kind of promotional force for vertebrate paleontology.
Uh-huh.
Um, Not to like inject, I don't know, loaded language. It's arguably a bit of a union of paleontologists. Like we're
Hmm.
contributing a membership fee. The society leadership advocates for things that are important for paleontology, whether it's preservation of public lands or trying to make sure that like there's advocacy with certain groups so that we have, I don't know, better grant funding or
Hmm.
professional development opportunities. It's basically a way of pooling resources, whether that's money or people's time, and focusing it aspirationally to the benefit of the society. And it plays an important role. It has for a long time, and I think that with some tweaking and new things we have coming, I think we do a lot more. It's just a matter of turning the steering wheel a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I want to go into a little bit more detail about public lands too, and I noticed that's something that you
Yeah.
added to our
Oh,
discussion
I
topics
forgot.
list.
SVP also publishes
Oh,
the Journal of Vertebrate Paleontology, which is a
JVP. Yeah.
very important vessel for
Yeah.
communicating research
Hmm.
to other professionals, the public, if they so choose, things like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So it plays a really big role in the promotion of primary research as well.
Hmm. I'm glad you added that because that JVP
Yeah.
is a big part of it, and it's funny. It's something that we often forget to mention, even though it's a huge part of what SVP is all about. Is
Yeah.
running. This is what we would call a society journal, um, and it's yeah. There's a lot of really important research that gets published in there, and it's often like the flashiest stuff. It's not like getting into Nature or Science, but this is like it's important sometimes foundational work in paleontology gets published in there.
Right.
We were talking about that with Michael Chiappone a couple weeks ago. Some of these like foundational papers in vertebrate taphonomy have come out of JVP, and this is stuff
Hmm.
that people use every single day. So yeah,
Right.
um, but yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about public lands and SVP's advocacy for public lands.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, let's get into that.
So
Maybe we should define
there's
what
a
public
lot of
lands are first, actually, for the audience, if
national
anybody's
parks,
not.
national monuments, Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management. Like there's a lot of different subunits of it,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of those lands do exist in the Mountain West.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like Rocky Mountain states westward. Obviously not all of it, but like I think there's good, I don't know, evidence
Huge,
that there's a
huge
lot out
portions
there.
of like
Huge
Montana
tracts of
and
it. Yeah.
Utah, Nevada, especially these states like
Yeah.
this. A ton of that is public land, which is the federal government oversees that, or state governments too. But
In some
they're
cases, yeah.
providing
Yeah. Yeah.
they're providing funding for overseeing these lands and managing them, and then this is where we as paleontologists in the U.S. do a lot of our field work because these fossils belong to we the people. They can't be sold to a
Right.
private buyer or anything. So it's vitally important for us as
Right.
paleontologists. Yeah.
Yeah, and so SVP has played an important role in in advocating for making sure that those lands are preserved in such a way so that they will not only be accessible um, in under the public trust as part of federal land protections,
Mm-hmm.
but also as an accessible resource for people doing paleo science. And it's just as vert paleo, like there's
Yeah.
all kinds of other natural history sciences and geology, biology, etc., that
Mm-hmm.
take place on public lands. For what
Absolutely.
we're talking about, like Grand Staircase, Escalante, Bears Ears,
Mm-hmm.
um, there's been over I think maybe the past decade in particular, maybe
Yeah.
more, like this very big push to make sure that we are protecting these really high value areas that are on government owned property
Mm-hmm.
lands to make sure that they are not exploited for things that are counterproductive to our ability to learn from those places.
Right. So what would be an example of something counterproductive to that?
So, I mean, and I'm not going to say that they're good arguments, but there are, in my opinion, but there
Mm-hmm.
are arguments on different sides of this as far as like economic impact and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but if you go and I don't know, dig all of the coal or aluminum ore or whatever out of a mountainside,
Mm-hmm.
and you decimate the fossil record of that space because you
Mm-hmm.
basically you had to get to the mineable rock that you're going after.
Mm-hmm.
You can use that once, and then
Right.
it's been consumed and it's
Gone.
gone. And using these spaces that are very high value with a really high quality record of ecosystems and life in the past as a way to learn to generate informational value, not just fiscal returns.
Right.
Um, and there's a much broader conversation about like a forest only has value when you talk about how much the lumber is worth and what that says about
Butter
our
society. Yeah.
broader value system. Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Don't get me started.
But yeah. But as far as the value of these places and their preservation and why it's important, um, it takes a long time to dig up fossils, something you have a substantial firsthand experience with. And
Oh yeah.
if there's a whole landscape full of this stuff, it's a lot easier to like blow up and grind up a mountain to pull ore out of it than it is to very carefully and meticulously extract data from it in order to answer questions. They're
Mm-hmm.
very different objectives,
Right.
um, with obviously very different methods. And so you can't really do both in the exact same places.
Right. I kind of feel like that goes
You
without
can kind of
saying
pick and
almost. Yeah.
choose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it gets like what your values are
Mm-hmm.
in a very broad sense. And if your value is expanding human knowledge of the planet that we live on, while also there's arguments that I'm sympathetic to as far as just elevating the living experience of people, and there's some economic stuff within that.
Right.
But you don't need to do that everywhere. And there's things that you can do that would mitigate how much destructive like these kinds of extractions you have to do.
Sure.
The stuff happening on these public lands that are fossil destructive, like mining, I think are a consequence of lack of progress in other areas to a
Mm-hmm.
degree that we still have this level of hunger for doing extraction in places that have a lot of other value that we should be paying attention to.
Okay. What do you mean by that? Could you rephrase that? Because I feel like that's a really
Sure.
interesting point, and I'm not sure people are gonna. I'm not sure
So
everybody's gonna grasp that. Yeah.
I don't know exactly. I don't remember exactly what it is that they would be seeking to mine, like out of Grand Staircase. I don't know if it's like coal deposits or something else. If it's energy or if it's like raw materials, like I don't know,
Yeah, I think
copper or aluminum
for
or something
Bears
like
Ears
that.
it was oil, right? But I'm not sure about Escalante.
Is it petroleum? Okay.
I want to
Um,
say it is for Bears Ears. I'm not sure about
okay.
Escalante either. Yeah.
So if you just don't have as much petroleum-based energy infrastructure, then
Hmm.
there's less pull on needing to go and tap into that resource at all, let alone destructively.
I see what you mean. So like
And so it's a
because
downhill consequence.
we have a society that is so dependent on oil that and we've set it up this way, you need to constantly be going after more and more of it, rather than if we
Right.
had infrastructure that wasn't so oil dependent in the first place. That's what you mean?
Right. You decrease
Yeah.
demand, you decrease the incentive to go to places that have multiple kinds of value
Right.
and use it for that thing,
Hmm.
as opposed to using it. They're also gorgeous landscapes. They have really
Yeah.
they have cultural importance to native peoples. Like there's plenty of reasons to not just go grind these areas up.
Yeah. I agree.
um,
Yeah.
and just natural landscape. Like it's important that we don't completely modify every single ecosystem because natural systems do services for us that we don't understand. The public maybe doesn't understand or appreciate the way that they should, and we don't
Hmm.
do a good job of putting dollar values on them. And if you go grind them up, you're not going to appreciate the services of natural systems until after they're gone, and you can't really put them back.
Hmm. Yeah.
So there's all that as well. But being able to keep these places intact so that they can be learned from
Hmm.
very deliberately, as well as just appreciated as these really spectacular landscapes that are
Yeah.
part of
Making
our
sure these places are
country.
preserved so that people can go hike there and go bird watching or go
Right.
camping or just enjoy these spaces in a way that's not extractive or profit focused necessarily. Yeah.
Right. And like, I don't know. I feel like there are ways where there's unexplored space for broader beneficial methods. Whereas like we
Yeah.
both sides of this want to go dig holes,
Sure, on different scales, but
right?
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Right, on different scales, but they both, at the end of the day, want to go dig holes in rock.
Hmm.
Okay, so if we were talking about what is broadly beneficial
Uh-huh.
socially and not just adversarial, and this is very pie in the sky. But if
Hmm.
you had a culture of like, yes, we need to go in there to get these resources, but we don't need a lot of it, or it's not urgent. We're not
Sure.
being quite so like we want to get in there and just pull all of it out as fast as we can, and then our numbers are going to look better. Projections over the next 10 years and all
Yeah.
this
Line go up.
complicated
Yeah.
market stuff. Yeah, line go up. But say, okay, this is a high value area for paleontologists. It's a high
Hmm.
value cultural area for these native peoples. And there are resources on there that we use in order to sustain our society.
Hmm.
Which, for those of you that came for a conversation just about like paleontology, sorry. Paleontology exists in the context of
A
human
larger
society.
society. Yes,
It's all
absolutely.
connected. I
Yeah.
I wish it was cleaner than that, but it
I
ain't.
primed everybody that we'd be talking about broad perspectives on paleontology and society today, so hopefully they knew what they were
um,
getting into, yeah.
but like, there's a lot of money in these mineral extractive industries, and if
Oh
there
yeah.
was a more of a let's help each other get what we want kind of attitude, rather than
Hmm.
a get out of our way because we want to go and get the oil out of the ground, or
Hmm.
we're not going to let you do any of that because the fossils are here. Like if you let's say that you took line item budgeted these extractive mining companies, let's say, and they
Hmm.
put some chunk of their budget just towards there's important natural resources there that aren't the ones we want,
Hmm.
but it is socially irresponsible of us So just grind them into powder.
Uh-huh.
Okay, what do we need to do to make this feel like a win for as many people as possible,
Uh-huh.
not just us?
Huh.
And so I am in no way advocating for like wholesale mining, obviously, in these spaces. That's not obviously not the
Sure.
opinion of SVP. It's not the one
Mm-hmm.
that I'm going to promote either.
Mm-hmm.
But if the need for some particular resource is as high as they are claiming, and if we are doing other things to reduce that need overall, which
Mm-hmm.
is again a much, much bigger question, then it seems as though because these extractive industries just have so much money in them, putting some of that money towards making sure that the concerns of other entities are met, even if it decreases profit margin by 5%,
Uh-huh.
10%, which is a lot of money. And like those level of changes for these companies is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also a matter of will to solve the problem.
Hmm.
This has been like another lesson that I have learned is that a lot of times, not with everything, obviously, some things are really big and it's just not a challenge you can meet with your current level of resources. But a lot of times, the small stuff, small to medium sized stuff, it's less a matter of ability or
Mm-hmm.
resources, and it's more a matter of will.
Expand on that a little bit. So
Sure.
when you're talking about coming to compromises and that being a matter of will or
So let's say that again, this is all very hypothetical, and
mm-hmm.
I'm getting on the edges of stuff that I can talk intelligently about. But let's say that
Sure.
you've got this company and their profit is I don't know, $100 million.
Okay.
Now, how much field work could you do for paleo with $2 million?
A tremendous amount. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about 2% of that profit total is
Mm-hmm.
being redirected in order to address a concern, a legitimate concern that like the paleontologists are bringing to this place. Now, there's a cultural component where the native peoples are like, we prefer that nobody dug holes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if that's the overarching concern where they're saying zero, that's a different question. But if it's just a financial one of how can we both get our needs met,
Mm-hmm.
the allocation of funding becomes a statement of values. It's a matter of will. Do they want to? And this is the case a lot where it's like I experienced this in SVP, for
Mm-hmm.
example. And I won't name names of folks who
Sure.
like have been used to be in leadership and stuff like that. But it's like you go to them and say, we would like to do X, Y, and Z. We would like a podium session for education talks.
Mm-hmm.
And the response would be something like, we're a research society. We're not going to do that. Or we can't do that because it would take space away from the research talks. And
Ah,
it's like, you can't. You said you can't because it will take space from research talks. It's not that you can't, it's that you
it's a
don't
won't.
want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a matter of will to do it, not an absolute like I don't know. There's not an iron wall between you and some magic wand that will allow
Sure.
us to have education talks.
Right. I see what you mean.
And that's the case I found with a lot of things. It's like it's not a
Mm-hmm.
matter of can or can't, it's a matter of will. And sometimes having the will to do it, it's going to be hard and it might be expensive and it might be all these things.
Mm-hmm.
But with the correct amount of will to do it, it's perfectly achievable. It's just difficult.
Right. Okay.
And a lot of people don't want to do things that are going to be really difficult, which I
Mm-hmm.
can sympathize with, but also, I don't know.
But there's a difference between difficult and categorically impossible. So I don't know. It
Yeah,
sounds like a
and
very
humans are
pragmatic
clever.
viewpoint you're taking here.
Yeah, and we're also pretty clever critters, like broadly speaking.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
There's there's a lot we can do if we throw enough resources and will behind any particular thing.
Hmm.
And so that's been kind of a viewpoint that I have landed on. Is like a lot of these things are just a matter of focused uh, will to address a particular issue versus a will to exclusively pursue some other outcome.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Which I know is a little bit of a, I don't know, a tangent off of the public land stuff, but I think it's also like what the will to preserve these spaces for
Hmm.
certain things versus the opposing will to exploit them once for a consumed resource.
Hmm.
And one of these parties has more resources to throw to get the outcome that they want.
Industry. Yeah.
They have a lot of incentive to do that,
Yeah.
and therefore their will is focused on achieving those outcomes to get those incentives.
Uh huh.
And so getting collaboration and also compromise on like you're going to get 5% of what you want, which is a lot more than zero. But
Hmm.
in order to do that, you basically have to like it's kind of like what California has with paleo remediation. Like there's a state
Right.
law where
Hmm.
they have to be attentive
Uh
to
huh.
these kinds of resources.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you do that broadly, there'd be a lot more jobs for paleontologists.
That's true. Yeah. That's interesting. You bring up remediation. And that's not
And
exclusively a
I want to
California
say
thing,
real
right?
quick,
Yeah.
I want to say real quick, I am not familiar enough with the full extent of the Federal Paleontology Land Management Organization to
Right.
know that no one is doing this right now. I do
Uh huh.
know that they're less able to do it with the catastrophic budget cuts that they have sustained. So our ability
Yeah.
to sustain resources to achieve compromised positions
Hmm.
is drastically diminished from what it was even 2 years ago. So,
Yeah. The landscape has
but yeah,
shifted a
I
lot
have
on
some
that front. Yeah.
ignorance here as far as personnel and organizing structure to do the stuff
Yeah.
versus maybe what they had in place 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. Interesting. Yeah. No, I could talk all day about this, about like SVP's role in advocate, like doing lobby work almost for
Yeah,
preserving federal lands and like lobbying the federal government to have protections in place for fossils. There was PERPA, the Paleontological Resources Protection Act that SVP I think was
yeah,
instrumental in helping shape. So these are
yeah.
all things that the Society of Vertebrate Paleontology does, and again, like I could talk about this all day. I want to be really cognizant of your time. How much?
Yeah, I actually
How
have
you doing?
I have another appointment right now.
Right now?
I
Okay,
just
yeah.
looked
I'm
at the
glad I
clock.
asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
I lost track of time a bit
Yeah.
myself. Yeah. So I will say real quick, SVP
Yeah.
is a government affairs committee, and I'm not
Uh
going
huh.
to give all their names. If you want to go look it up on the website, I think that at least the chair of the committee is listed. But they do hugely important work that everyone who enjoys North American or paleontology that happens inside the United States, especially, we're
Yeah.
working on advocacy and helping our colleagues beyond the US and North America. That's a work in progress. But they've done incredible work, the US government, in making sure that some of these spaces are preserved as well as they can.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no will to have a conversation, and all the will is let's grind it up and turn it into ore or just drop wells, then obviously it's a lot harder. But yeah, they've done some really important stuff over the past. I mean, as long as the committee's existed.
Yep. One of the reasons I'm so proud to be a member of SVP. Like they do some cool stuff.
Yeah.
I know you got to go, so I'll say
Yeah.
again to the
Sorry.
chat that yeah, you should check out the Sternberg camps. We've got links there in the chat, and enrollment is currently open. It's been open for 2 weeks, so if people want to learn
Yeah.
more, they can visit the website. There's lots of resources there, and thank you so much for your time, David. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And if folks want to hear more about a lot of the stuff that I do, like I don't post a lot about research because it's just not really it's not my professional zone. I love it, but it's not what I do. I can be found at BioGeoverse, BioGeoverse, on Blue Sky and Instagram primarily.
I'll put a link there in the chat for
So
everybody. Yeah.
I share a
Um,
lot of other people's paleontology. I just don't do a lot of it myself.
yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, David. Good luck with your appointments and everything.
Yeah,
And it'd be great to have you on again at some point in the future to talk about more specific things. But it's been a really wide ranging conversation, and I appreciate you kind of bouncing around with us here to all these different
sure.
lofty subjects. So, yeah,
Yeah, I'm happy to come and talk about any of this stuff anytime. So
cool.
have a good
Appreciate it,
rest of your
David.
night, everybody. Thanks for having me. Really
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Bye bye. Take care.
Yeah, take care.